So you just come back off holiday and you and your friends have got a WhatsApp group. Pictures start getting uploaded into the WhatsApp group. And there's lots of pictures of you having fun, enjoying yourself, sunbathing, partying, all of those different things. That day when you were all hungover, all of that's on there. But all of a sudden you start experiencing this feeling. Every time you see a photograph of yourself, you start to compare yourself against your friends. You start to think, I need to lose weight. I look terrible. And it really, really bums you out. So then you decide, that's it. I'm going to start eating healthily. I'm going to start going to the gym. And you start setting all of these goals. And you finally pick yourself up and you say, yeah, I'm going to do something about it. And for a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3, things are going okay. It's not as bad as you thought it'd be. Then after a couple of weeks, when you start to lose weight, other people might start to notice you lose weight. It starts to become really difficult. You start to resent the workout you're doing. Start to dread it. Start to find it really difficult to stick to the diet. You start taking days off. You start taking meals off. You start taking weekends off. You start making yourself that promise that diet starts Monday and it never happens. And you start to have this overwhelming feeling of self-sabotage. Does that sound familiar? Because today I'm going to be talking about self-sabotage. And if I'm honest, this is the no BS guide because I've learned a lot of things about self-sabotage. In fact, I'd go as far as to say I've become an expert on it because I did it for a very, very long time for lots of different reasons. Reasons that ultimately became excuses, and then it was just this perpetual state of staying in a cycle of wanting to do the thing, not wanting to do the thing. And it becomes really, really difficult to get out of. Welcome back to the Johnny Lawrence Podcast, the show that helps you face your truth, get out of your own way, and build a life on your terms. Today, we're talking about self-sabotage, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is that no BS episode. You might go, Johnny, this is not like you. Well, it is a bit. If you've ever caught yourself procrastinating, shrinking back from opportunities, or killing your own momentum the minute things start to go well, and that's a key point, then you're in the right place. Because here's the thing, right? I didn't use the weight loss analogy by accident because I used to be a PT and I saw people come in who really believably wanted to lose weight. And here's the thing, here's the story. They've always battled with their weight. They've always gone up and down. They've never quite looked the way that they want to look around their friends. They've taken a lot of possibly throwaway comments really personally, and they've really, really decided that they hate themselves. Quite often as a PT, I would ask people, like, what's the driver behind you wanting to lose weight? And they would look me in the eye and they would say, I hate myself. And there's the first point. That's not a very kind place to come from. That's not a very helpful source of motivation. I hate myself is not going to be the thing that motivates you when it gets difficult. I'm not asking you to love yourself. If you've been practicing self-loathing for 10, 20, 30 years, then to ask yourself to love yourself is a bit of a big ask, I think. But maybe even getting to like yourself is difficult at this stage. But what about getting to know yourself? What about a non-judgmental overview of who you are? Start to recognize the things you like and don't like. Start to respect yourself. And then when you want to lose weight, you lose weight because you respect yourself, not because you hate yourself. So that's a good start, I think. But ultimately, what happened when I was a PT, more often than not, and I noticed this over and over again, is people would come to me and they'd be really motivated. And we'd start doing the training program, but the main goal was to lose weight. And over time, they'd start to lose weight, and we'd start to look at the diet, and we'd start to course correct. First, we'd have a look at breakfast, then we'd have a look at lunch, then we'd have a look at dinner over time, and we'd slowly make small changes, and we'd get them to increase their water and look at the times they go to bed and wake up and all of those different things. And they'd lose weight. They would start to get compliments from people. They'd start to go shopping and buy new clothes, and everything was starting to come together for them. But here's the thing. For most of their life, they had been the person who they perceived to be overweight. And they knew how to be that person. They recognized that person. That person was familiar. But the thing is, when that person starts to get compliments, they never got compliments before, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. When they go shopping and they try things on and people say, oh, that looks really nice, they don't recognize themselves. They're having to wear new clothes. They're having to eat new food. They're having to get compliments that they never got before. And this whole experience of losing weight, this whole experience of changing, this whole experience of moving towards their goal starts to feel very unfamiliar and very uncomfortable. And we've spoken about this before. Human beings, we gravitate towards comfort and away from discomfort. Nothing makes you feel more comfortable than things that are familiar. Those things that are familiar do not have to be good for you though. And this is the thing. It isn't self-sabotage. You don't set off down a path of losing weight or upskilling at work or improving your fitness or learning a language or trying to pass your test or giving up alcohol or giving up caffeine or giving up sugar, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then you find yourself failing or giving up. And then you say that you're a self-saboteur, or you have a self-saboteur, or you sabotage yourself. The reason you do that is not because you sabotage yourself. How is that helpful to you? How is it helpful for you to believe that you sabotage yourself? That's not what's happening. Actually, what you're doing is you're going to your only known way of self-soothing. And guess what? You know how to be the overweight person. You know how to be that person. You're very comfortable there. It's very familiar. So you start to gravitate towards that, and then the compliments stop. And then people stop asking you about it, and everything goes back to normal. You're not sabotaging yourself. You are going to your only known way of self-soothing. So when you set a goal, when you set something that you want to do or want to achieve, you have to prepare for this. You are going to be different, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. You're not going to know how to be this new person. And there's lots of really exciting points there, but that's not how it feels. And slowly but surely, this self-sabotaging, I call it self-soothing behavior, starts to creep in. You start to gain a little bit more weight, and then people stop talking about it all the time, and it starts making you feel uncomfortable because you just don't know how to be this person. And it's just excruciating. It's so difficult. And then that self-saboteur comes in, that self-soothing. So I just wanted to say that from the beginning, that you're not self-sabotaging. And this is the first thing that needs to go. We need to get rid of that language. We're not sabotaging ourselves. We are self-soothing. So the plight here is to find another way to soothe ourselves without the alcohol, without the food, without the damaging behavior that takes us back to the person that we do not want to be anymore. The person that makes us feel unhappy, the person that we allow others to judge and joke about. That has to stop, because we're here to be better, remember. So there's a couple of things I want to go through today. The first one is you have to own it. You have to own this behavior. You have to become aware of this behavior. So let's start with that hard truth. Self-sabotage isn't about bad luck. You're not unlucky. These things aren't happening to you. It's not the universe hating on you. It's not. It's you. You're doing these things. And I'm not saying you're doing these in a self-hating way, but it's not about that. It's about ownership. It's about you taking ownership. These things aren't happening to you. They don't just keep happening to you. You're doing them. And that sounds really harsh. It feels like I'm telling you off. Feels like I'm judging you. I'm not. I'm just saying, if it is you doing these things, which it is, then that's brilliant. Because now you're empowered. Because now you have a choice. Now you have that realization that if I'm doing this, I can stop doing this. And that is a super important point. You see, if your life is off track, it's on you. I hate that. I hate that that's true, but it is. There's been many times in my life where things have happened to me, and I don't want it to be true, but when I stop and I look back, I go, if I hadn't have done this, then if this hadn't happened, but I made it happen, I called it in, or I didn't do something, or I did do something, whatever it is, it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult to get to that place. You see, it's not a punishment, what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should hate on yourself and blame yourself. It's not about blame. It's about impact. It's about realizing that you have control here. That's a lot of freedom, actually. It really is. It's a lot of freedom. Because if you're the problem, you are also the solution. And that is very, very empowering. Too many people stay stuck waiting for the right moment, the right feeling, or the right someone to come along and rescue them. But here's the truth. Nobody's coming. And that's actually great news, because you don't need anyone to come. You don't need to rely on anybody. You need to start showing up for yourself. And that's the point I'm making here. Own that behavior. Whatever it is that you're doing or not doing, it's time to recognize that. And it's time to start putting things in place so that you stop doing it or you start doing it. So no one's coming. It's not on anyone else. It's on you. And that is a good thing. The next thing to look at is try and see the pattern. If this is something that you've tried, I just can't lose weight, or I just can't seem to pass my driving test, or I just can't seem to do whatever it is or not do whatever it is, then we need to recognize it, because there'll be a pattern. There'll be things that happen all the time. Self-sabotage doesn't always look like some dramatic meltdown. Most of the time, it's very subtle. And that's why it's hard to stop, because you've got to become aware of it. You've got to pinpoint the point where you're making that decision, whatever it is. And it looks a little bit like procrastination. It looks a little bit like perfectionism. It looks a little bit like overcommitting and then ghosting. Telling yourself you're being realistic when actually you're just afraid. All of these things are really important to understand, because when you procrastinate, you probably have an overwhelming fear of failure or an overwhelming fear of success. When you experience perfectionism, you're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying not to fail. And then when you're telling yourself you're just being realistic, you know that's not true. You're just scared. All of this is about fear, and self-sabotage loves fear. It can work with fear really quite easily. So I want you to ask yourself, what is the pattern here? Look for that thing that you keep doing that keeps ending up in you calling it self-sabotage. Be brutally honest, because once you can see the pattern, you can start breaking it. The next one is, what's the hidden payoff? This is a tricky one, you see. Here's the bit that most people miss. Every act of self-sabotage has a payoff. Every single one. Procrastination relieves pressure. Perfectionism gives you a sense of control. Playing small protects you from rejection. You may hate the result, but your brain loves the payoff. And until you become aware of that, you'll keep doing it. So this is what we have to look at. Like I said, find the patterns. And if you are procrastinating, you're trying to relieve that pressure. If you are struggling with perfectionism, then you're trying to gain control because you feel overwhelmed and out of control. Playing it small stops you from experiencing rejection. Man, I get that. I totally understand that. I'd have done that and most likely will do it again as the levels start to go up in my career. So here's the thing, right? Ask yourself this. What am I getting from this pattern? What need is it meeting? So now we're getting to it. We're starting to identify it. We're starting to look at the patterns, and then we're starting to look at what's the payoff here? What do I get from doing this? Where's this self-soothing? What am I trying to soothe? Am I trying to soothe that pressure? Am I trying to soothe that feeling of feeling overwhelmed by gaining control? Or am I trying to soothe that fear of rejection? Next one, motivation. You don't need to feel motivated to take action. You don't even need to be ready. Waiting to feel confident before you act is like waiting to get fit before you go to the gym. Actions create clarity. Action builds belief. I heard a saying once, if you want to gain confidence, you have to go where you have none. So if you're sitting around waiting for the perfect time to start, you're not stuck. You're stalling. I told you, no BS. You're not stuck, you're stalling. I know you're driving your car right now and you're hearing that and you hate hearing that and every part of you wants to turn this off. But don't. Because this is the talk you need to hear. This is the part of you that I'm talking to right now that wants to fight back, that wants you to be that version of yourself that you deserve to be. To keep listening. It's not going to get easier, mind. I will say that. Next part is we have to translate your inner critic. We all have that voice in our head that tells us that we're not good enough. But that's not the truth. That's an old fear coming back, doing what it's always done and giving you the same result that you've always got. But here's the trick. Do not argue with it. Translate it. So when your inner critic says you're going to fail, well, let's translate that. How about I'm scared of being judged? This is stupid turns to this is risky and unfamiliar. Once you decode the critic, you can lead it rather than obey it. That's power. And that's what emotionally intelligent people do. They don't silence fear. They understand it and act anyway. You see, fear isn't a command to stop. It's the awareness that what you're doing is scary. If you've got to go and talk in front of 1,000 people, that's scary. And being scared sounds like the right emotion. Congratulations. If you're about to do something you've never done before and there's all of these worries and concerns, of course it's going to be scary. Of course it's going to create fear. That's the right emotion. There's nothing wrong here. But you do need to keep doing the thing that you want to do and move forward anyway. Next is upgrade your identity. Now we're going to get into some real talk. You'll never outperform your identity. You can set all the goals you want, but if deep down you still see yourself as a failure or the person who always screws it up, you will always prove yourself right. So start asking yourself, what kind of person would have the life that I want? Then start behaving like that person right now. Not when it's convenient, do it right now. You see, at the beginning, It might feel like you're faking it, but you're not faking it. You are building it. And that is a very important difference. Next, create accountability that bites. You're going to hate this, but it does work. I use it on myself and I used it with others. Look, we're all human, yeah? Willpower fades. Willpower is limited in the body. Some don't even believe it's a real thing. We try our hardest, but willpower fades and habits slip. That's why you need real, not fluffy, check-in with myself accountability. Yuck. I'm talking like real life stakes here. So here are the things you might be able to do, and there'll be many others, but here are just a couple of things. Tell people what you're doing. Tell them, because they'll hold you accountable. How's that thing going? You don't want to tell them it's not going very well, or you haven't done it yet, or anything like that. That's a horrible thing. So it's a bit of pressure. So tell people what you're doing. Set public deadlines. Maybe announce it on Facebook. You say, oh, I don't want to announce it on Facebook just in case I don't do it. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you you're probably not committed. If you're entertaining that ever so slight amount of doubt, then guess what? That doubt will probably win, which means you probably won't do it. Create real consequences for not following through. If it doesn't hurt a little bit, to let yourself off the hook, but it's not accountability. It's just another way of creating a comfort zone. So create accountability that bites. Next, train for discomfort. There's that saying, isn't there? Become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Well, that almost feels like you're trying to create another comfort zone, but what I'm trying to say here is train for that discomfort. Self-sabotage hates discomfort, but so does growth. So you get to pick. There's still a choice there. You can't change and stay comfortable at the same time. I just have never seen it and I've never experienced it. When you start to change, it starts to become uncomfortable quite quickly. And there's this tug and this draw back to your old life and your old ways. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was, blah, blah, blah. All of these excuses start coming out and you start to slowly drift back towards the old habit. And you call it self-sabotage. But again, you're seeking comfort. You're self-soothing. It's very easy and understandable to do. So here's your new training ground. Start doing things that make you feel uncomfortable, but that align with your goals. Don't just go and do random stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable because it won't translate. Speak up, show up, mess up, try again. Discomfort is the gym where your confidence is built. You see, here's the thing. It's not about winning all the time. We learn so much, if not a little bit more, from our failures. Our failures are not failures. And when we fail, that's fine. Fail. Own the failure, because then when you own the failure, you can look at the lessons that can be learned from it. And then you can crack on and do it again. And then you can crack on and do it again. And every single time you'll get a little bit better, a tiny bit better. In the beginning, you might not even notice the differences, but you are getting better. And before you know it, you've nailed it. And then you start to look at the next thing. So let's land this plane. If you take nothing from this episode today, take this. You don't need more time. You need a decision. There's a power in decision. If you go back to some of the early episodes, I talk a lot about decision. Decide to show up differently. Decide to act before you feel ready. Decide to stop waiting for a perfect moment and start becoming the person who doesn't need one. Self-sabotage dies the moment you stop negotiating with fear and start executing with truth. That's the end of the episode. So if you have enjoyed this episode, if it's hit home, do me a favor, share this with somebody. Because we're really trying to make this podcast a big thing. So I need you to leave reviews. I need you to share. I need you to follow the podcast. Because if you share it with someone who's stuck in a loop, it might just be the thing that helps them. It might be that talking to that they need to move them on to the next part of their journey. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Johnny Lawrence podcast. But until then, keep showing up, keep leading yourself. And remember, the only way is through.